Hi, I'm Gary Dehart, publisher of Insightful Accountant. Welcome to another episode of Accounting Insiders. Today, I am joined by, or is that the right word? I have Kellie Parks
We are in
from
the presence of
the
Gary
presence of
DeHart.
very nice of Kellie Parks from Calmwaters Accounting and all Cloud Calmwaters Cloud Accounting,
Calmwaters Cloud Accounting.
and get this one, the Cloud Accounting templates. So, welcome. Thanks for joining us. We are filming here at Xerocon 2022 in the humid city of New Orleans.
Actually,
So,
you know what? I was surprised. It's not as humid as I thought it was going to be. And they
gosh,
called for heavy thunderstorms. We really haven't had so
we
much
have
of them.
not. It's been nice,
Yeah, it's
right?
been great.
Yeah. Oh, my hair though.
Yeah, your hair.
Shoosh. Yeah. So, all right. So tell me Calm Waters Cloud Accounting and Cloud Accounting templates. I can figure the second one. I think I know what that is, but give me 2 minutes on those two things and then let's dive in.
Okay, so Calmwaters Cloud Accounting is a, wait for it,
I'm going to guess a desktop accounting company.
bad guess.
Oh,
It is, and in
yes.
Canada, we're allowed to use the word accounting though I don't have a CPA designation.
Okay.
So I built that around the SEO. So
Okay.
I actually have a cloud bookkeeping business.
Okay.
And yeah, so I mostly deal, not mostly, I have one sole prop, can't get rid of him, have tried like crazy. That would be the husband. Other than that, I deal with incorporated businesses that are of a medium size, generally multi-entity,
Okay.
and all on cloud. So they are generally running a cloud business as well. They are generally tech forward companies.
Okay.
That's not what it was in the past. I had some that I moved onto cloud, and but now they're more and more businesses are coming to you. They're already wanting to solve that cloud piece
Mm-hmm.
and moving forward on it. So yeah, that's that. And the
And
cloud,
how many clients?
I don't have very many clients. They are
Okay.
multi-entity.
Yeah.
So I have less than 2 dozen actual GL files.
Okay.
And those are spread out over, I really only have to deal with 6 businesses in that range though,
Okay.
multi-entity.
Okay. And then the cloud accounting templates. I'm going to guess that it's templates that are used in cloud accounting. You
Yes.
can't get anything past me. I
No.
got a good night's
So
sleep last night.
you can, you were one of few
Yeah,
because we are in New Orleans.
that's true.
So cloud accounting templates is exactly what it sounds, because I might have been thinking of the SEO on that one a little bit
Yes.
too. Although it's a long URL for sure.
Yeah, try insightfulaccountant.com.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. So, and that is templates, workflow templates built in. They are app proprietary, so they are built for some of the workflow applications.
Okay.
So I've got some built for ClickUp, Asana, Financial Sense. Um, there's like half a dozen that they are proprietary, and then the rest of them are as files that can be uploaded into things like Carbon or Jetpack or any of the kind of practice management apps.
Okay.
And then I've got standard operating processes, manuals that have all the niggly details, and then guide the firm to do things like naming conventions and numbering systems for chart of accounts. And so it lists all of those, and then those can be totally customized for the firm. So your numbering system may not be what my numbering system is,
Right.
but it pushes you into doing everything in a standardized manner. And then it gets into the weeds of the stuff you would not put in a workflow. So for example, in a workflow, you would have, reconcile these kinds of counts, yada, yada, do it in overview, and then, make sure that this happens, no unclear transactions. So it's got like the milestone, it's got the tasks, and it's got some notes and some best practices.
Okay.
In the standard operating manuals, you would have things that you don't do every day. Like, what do you do with NSF checks? What do you do with, especially if they're payroll, for example? What do you do with stale data checks? Some firms are still using checks, or some of their clients are still using checks.
Right.
So all of the things you don't do every day that you completely forget how to do, and so then they don't do them
Yep.
until year end, and then you're stuck with a longer year end. So
Okay.
that's what the cloud accounting
And how did
templates
you get
is.
into that?
So I have a marketing background.
Okay.
And I worked in a world where we lived and died by work backs, we called them, not workflows. And so it was compliance work as well. So I did branding and marketing programs, big programs
Okay.
for compliance driven businesses. So it would be banks, insurance companies, mutual fund companies, all that stuff still has securities commissions deadlines.
Mm-hmm.
So we would do their annual reports, we would do IPOs, all of those launches. And you start with, what is the end run? What's the date at the furthest out location that an annual report has to be shipped by?
Okay.
and then you do everything backwards to achieve that outcome.
Gotcha.
And you bring in all the stakeholders. Where are you going to get the paper from? How much do you need of it? Who's going to be the designer on it? Who's going to be the approvers? At what point do the clients come in? How long do they get to approve something? So been doing that since, well, I mean, over 35
So really
years.
and would you have thought, okay, high school or college, I don't know if you went to college or doesn't matter, but coming out of whatever your last like schooling would be,
Right.
right? Did you think, oh, I'm a process person, or just have you always been clearly you're a process person,
I'm
but yeah,
I'm
you
an
always been that way?
Well, so I am known to go into friends' houses and reorganize their fridges and cupboards. It is not always appreciated. I've
Well, if you're in Atlanta, Georgia,
Right?
Johns Creek specifically, come by.
Organize your
We
fridge.
start with the garage.
Okay.
Start with the
Ooh, that's a
garage.
big one to tackle. So I've always been super organized,
Yes.
but no, I took actually kinesiology at university.
Okay.
Did not finish for a variety of reasons, but loved it. And I think um, coming out of that, though, that was early tech days. We were DOS in the basement
Mm-hmm.
of York University, down there in the, and first year kids
Yeah.
taking biomechanics. We only get 3 a.m. on the computers that you couldn't even start
Right.
then,
Yeah.
right? Starting those things,
Oh
you're
yeah.
relying on your friends.
Yeah.
And realized that I love technology.
Okay.
Those were the days. No matter how ugly it was, I was like, wow, the end result of biomechanics and seeing your gate up there and how you can fix that
Mm-hmm.
has always been a passion, but did not expect that it would then lead me to marketing and then would lead me to bookkeeping,
Right. Yeah.
for sure.
It's a very
Didn't see it
strange
coming.
route. Very
Yeah,
strange route.
a
So
little circuitous.
yeah, so we're gonna kind of stick with that just a little bit, just because. So I mean, are you like with your templates?
Yes.
And if this is not a fair question, just say it's not, and we scratch it. But um, on the templates, are you building all these things, or are you saying by building? I mean, are you designing, or are you saying, all right, this is the flow I want, and then you find somebody who is hardcore on doing these things, or are you the one that's really doing that?
So the templates that are built for people to just import into the systems or
Hmm.
customize in the way they want, I build those.
Okay.
I love doing that.
Yeah.
And I
I
love
would
it.
imagine being a process person. Yeah.
Yeah, and I love iterating them. And it kind of started out like this. As soon as I did something and realized I was going to do it more than once, I would basically pack it out in a spreadsheet, right? I
Hmm.
mean, we're talking 25 years ago, right? So all in a spreadsheet. So I would pack that stuff out. This is when I'm doing the processes for annual reports,
Okay.
IPOs. And then when I came into the bookkeeping space, which was I had a number of businesses at the time, and I was basically organizing all of the
Hmm.
finances, and somebody else was doing it. And then they were like quarterly telling me something that I should have done a quarter ago, and then on you go. And then finally I'm in the weeds of my books, and
Right.
I'm actually in the GL, loving it because it suits my brain. So when I came into the world of doing bookkeeping for myself, my businesses, I did all the SOPs on how that was going to look. And then when I started doing bookkeeping for other people's businesses, I realized I needed to document those as well.
Hmm.
And then I would document them based not just necessarily on that client. And then I had friends in the bookkeeping space and in the accounting space. And I'm like, they would see them.
Right.
We share a lot
Yeah,
in
do
this
share a lot in
space.
this
We share a
community, which
lot.
is amazing.
And I'm like sharing those. And then one day I'm like, well, I can sell
I could
those.
probably get some money out of this.
Yeah, and I didn't start with the
Right.
spreadsheet ones. My CRM is something called 17 Hats.
Oh,
And
okay. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and yeah, because you can do everything, right? I mean, it's got forms in there, it's got contracts, it's got um you can do invoicing, but you can do, I'm drawing a blank, all kinds of cool things in 17 Hats,
Yeah.
start to finish, for onboarding, re-engaging, anything that's going to involve questionnaires and contracting can be done in there, and it's all done in a system.
Okay.
So they came up with this thing of sharing and monetizing it. So I started actually with, I had a vacation property rental, and I had that built in there, and I put that on their template site, and people were buying it. And then I'm like, yeah, but I'm doing the accounting in here. Can people do some stuff in there? And so then I started selling my templates just low key in 17 Hats.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, okay, cool. But then I moved on to some other things in addition, another practice management, financial sense, for example, and you can import templates into it. And then I'm building them in spreadsheets because you can put them in. And I'm like, why would anybody do their own,
Right.
if they've got they're going to be different,
Right.
but it's a heck of a lot easier to edit than to start.
Right.
So I have a
Yeah.
saying, the hardest part of going for a run is putting on your shoes.
Right. I believe that.
So then it just
That's why I don't run.
right.
Just can't put my shoes on.
You're right.
Yeah.
So it just grew into this thing that
Hmm.
had benefit to other people, and I can monetize. I don't need to be a
Absolutely.
volunteer here.
Sure. No, I mean, that's great. That's great. So actually so we had some questions that we talked about, but so that actually is a really good segue into kind of what prevents either practitioners, we're going to stick with practitioners because that's really our core audience. What prevents them from embracing change, right? Again, we've talked about it. You go into, it's a two-part question, right? Recurring issues that you see when you go into a client, and because you have two client bases, right? You've
Yes.
got your bookkeeping clients and then other practitioners. So certainly there's, the seven things you're going to see when you walk in the door. Um, what usually prevents that change from taking place? Again, here's the seven things we know are wrong. I'm the practitioner. I know they're wrong, but I'm not going to change. Why is that? What do you see?
So do you want to talk about accounting professionals, or do you want to talk about SMBs first?
Let's
They're
talk about
two different stories here.
let's talk about accounting professionals. If we have time, we'll go back to SMBs.
Okay.
Let's talk about accounting professionals first, because again, our primary audience is that group.
Okay. So accounting professionals, I see lots of the same things over and over again. And so I have another saying. Actually, I trademarked it.
Okay.
I actually trademarked
.com.
this. Yeah, .com. No, it's got a little TM after it. And that is, change is hard. Not changing will be harder.
Yes, I've seen that in your footnote somewhere.
Yeah, yeah, it's part of my tagline
Okay.
everywhere.
Yeah.
Yep. And so, first of all, lots of accounting professionals are making good money, not changing.
Why change?
Why change?
Right? It's
Yeah,
not broken.
it's not broken, but it's getting broken.
Yeah.
Right? It's like not changing out your running shoes at the 500-kilometer mark. They're still fine, but at 600 kilometers, it's not going to be fine. And as I learned during we've had this pandemic thing going
Yeah,
on.
I heard about that.
Yeah, I could not get my brand of running shoes.
Mm.
So what are you going to do to get out ahead of the problem? And it's really hard to see getting out ahead of the problem because things are going okay back here.
Right.
So that is the biggest challenge with change. The other problem is we're tripping over ourselves because of the very nature of how our brains work. And that is, we want to know the KPIs on everything.
Mm.
We want to have everything laid out before us and know exactly how it's going to go before we want to initiate change. So one of the biggest struggles I see is firms where maybe you've got a couple of partners who are in and where a couple of partners aren't, you're struggling with the KPIs on it. And I will say going to a cloud-based business model is a leap of faith.
Mm.
You could turn yourself inside out on KPIs, but sometimes you've just got to make that first step out the door.
Got to go with your gut.
You've
At
got to
some
go with your
point.
gut. And you know what? That is not what accounting professionals
Right.
do well. So they're battling against themselves in that, because we do that with our clients all the time.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, okay, here's what your ROIs look like. Here's what your KPIs. Here's your percent of income, profit and loss.
Right.
Right. Let's think about it. Let's overthink it. So then I have another saying, and that is stop overthinking and just do one thing.
Was that trademarked? I'm going to trademark that. No.
That one's not trademarked yet, so you can have that one. Yes.
I would never. Okay, so I'm making too much money, or things are comfortable,
Things
right?
are comfortable.
Well, since you got the whole toad in the pot, right?
Yes, the boiling
Let
frog.
it
Are we allowed to use the word boiling frog term?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
This
no,
is
you got the boiling frog.
right. I mean,
Mhm.
and until you don't know, and I think what the practitioner or firm owner needs to really be thinking about, right? What any business owner should be the exit. How do I get out? And if I'm not embracing these changes, I get to the end, I think my business is worth X. Well, you're, so much of your business is you.
Yeah.
And then if you're on old tech, who's going to want it?
So I don't know anything about anything in general, but I'm willing to throw my opinion out there anyways.
But I'm very opinionated.
Very
Yes.
opinionated. I'm not sure if it's opinionated, but I'm willing to spout off
Yeah.
about stuff that I don't really claim to be, what do they call that? A
Subject
subject
matter
matter
expert. You're
expert.
not an SME.
I am not an SME on this. Certainly not an SME, but I have a friend who sells accounting practices. That's what she does.
Okay.
And she sold her bookkeeping firm. And so I've asked her a number of times, what are the things that bring a sale to a higher value? And a lot of it has to do with the forward thinking tech because they're already where the industry is going.
Yep.
And, that's a hard thing too. I, you know, the tech is not always pretty. And it certainly wasn't in 2012, 2013.
Right.
I didn't get into the cloud accounting programs because they were pretty. I got into them because I wanted to be where they were going. Because I had come from an industry already, the marketing and branding industry was 25 years ahead on tech, pretty much any industry. We were using FTP sites. As soon as Adobe came out,
Yeah.
PDF, we were using PDFs instead of using the giant proofs that you took to a client,
Yeah. Right.
we're shipping them off over FTP sites. We're
Wow.
shipping files off. And it was ugly. Like, it was so ugly. You always had to have a backup plan. So if you were going to ship something off that's on a tight compliance schedule and you're going to put it on an FTP site and then that site fails, you better have a backup Jazz drive,
Right.
actually Jazz drives, that the bike courier is going to take somewhere. Right? So you still need to do the same thing now. You can't not have a secondary way of doing things.
Right.
We're getting better, but being where the tech is going, back to the topic of what you asked about selling a firm,
Mm-hmm.
it's harder you can sell a tax practice and a can we call it cloud accounting services? Great
Absolutely.
debate on tax Twitter about
Right.
that.
Yeah.
You can sell them back here because there's a lot of desktop clients. There's still money to be made. But some of the things that my girlfriend is telling me out here is the tech that you're using. If it's cloud based, it's going to bring you a higher rate. You may know way more about this and you're letting me spout off.
No, no. I'm listening.
But here's the other thing. It is how much money is going to the owner and how much of a life does the owner have has become a big thing. Is the owner the only person making sure that the
Right.
ship is getting through the storm? Or do they have a life? And so Carrie has told me that that's a really important component now of what's going on out there.
Hmm.
So it's not just the tech, but you got to be out there on the cloud for your business to get that 1.5, 2 times revenue.
Yeah. And you have to have other people doing
You got to have other people
key
doing it. Although
parts, right?
sole people have sold their businesses,
Mm-hmm.
I know some sole practitioners that have sold their businesses. The businesses are not named after the owner, for starters,
Yeah.
right? And they have processes in place to have a life. And that involves the cloud technology. They
Okay.
have processes in place for their clients to have a life too.
Okay. So with that, kind of loop back around. So processes in place.
Hmm.
We say processes
We say processes. You want to talk about niche,
here.
or now some people are saying truly French Canadian niche.
Niche. We're in. We're in. It's going to be niche from now on.
Okay.
So the actually I got totally distracted. The
Welcome to
oh
Kelly.
yes, but what about all right? So what? How do I
Squirrel.
exactly the change? So practitioner, I I know I need to do these things.
Hmm.
Is it? Do
Processes
you
in place.
find? Yeah, I know I need to get processes in place. Do you find that it's because I don't have the time, or because I just don't want to do it? What would you say is the biggest roadblock for a practitioner who knows they need to do something
I'm going to
and
go
not
back
doing
to they're overthinking again.
it? Mm,
So a lot of people don't have time. But if you don't have the time now, you're never going to have the time. Like, if you just keep saying, I don't have the time to document my processes.
yeah.
By the way, I have processes for that. You don't
.com.
need
Yeah.
to. Cloudaccountingtemplates.com. Um, I mean, you just keep pushing the pain further out.
Absolutely. Right.
100%. So you don't need to, like, build the Roman Empire all at once. So what I really encourage people to do, I'm gonna dial it back a little bit first. I think the most important thing to do is document what some of the outcomes you want. Why do you need the documented processes? So you actually need to take it back a little and say, if I documented this is the outcome I would have. So let's take onboarding, for example.
Mm-hmm.
If I do, like, you need to define, why do I need an onboarding process fully documented, systematized, and then hopefully portions of it automated, right? I think there still needs to be a lot of human element in the onboarding process, but you don't need to pack out that contract every time
Right.
or the email, and you don't need to get on the phone or on the Zoom and have a meeting with somebody until they've filled out a lead generation form that says, yes, I will go virtual and I will connect bank feeds, whatever,
Right.
which takes you back to at least figuring out who you want to deal with. So who is that 5-star client?
Mm-hmm.
What is the ideal? So if your ideal client is an incorporated business willing to connect their bank feeds, possibly multi-entity where the owner is highly involved in their finances, not that that's mine or anything,
Right.
you can narrow down your lead generation form. And if the only thing you do this week or this month is narrow down your lead generation form, you're off the horn with all the tire kickers.
Right.
If you also know what your base price is, you're off the phone with all the tire kickers. You're not wasting your time. So just defining that one thing, and it doesn't have to be a complicated thing about who you want to deal with,
Right.
but taking it down to that, man, the time you have saved without all the crap over here with people that are never going to be a joy to work
Right.
with is insane.
Yeah.
And then the next thing you do, you say, okay, where are the stumbling blocks on my onboarding process? And then you just define the milestones. Okay, so I need the lead generation. What do I want to do next? I actually want to have a phone call or a Zoom call. Once they pass through one lead gen that asks 5 key questions, right? Online banking, will you have virtual relationship, whatever,
Right.
right? The next one is really getting into what services do they need? How much you're going to be involved in payroll? What's their accounts payable look like? And it doesn't have to be a lengthy form. It just has to vet them for if they have inventory that's builds, for example, and you don't do builds, you're done then too.
Mm-hmm.
Once they pass all that, then you have the phone call. You got to talk to them.
Right.
And then once they pass that, your next system is a file review. So you just define it by the milestones. So it's the vetting, it's the actual phone call, then it's the file review, and then you move on to the quoting phase. You don't need to get into all the details
Mm-hmm.
of what every one of those things are. Just start with the milestones, but people don't. They want to build out these perfect processes.
Yeah. I like, well, so we've talked about doing a webinar series, right? We
Mm-hmm.
talked about
Yeah.
this prior, and what I really liked about it, and it kind of ties in with what you're just talking about, and that's just one thing at a time,
Yeah.
right? Just one thing.
Yep.
Solve this one problem,
Yep.
then solve the next problem,
Yep.
and solve the next one, because there's always going to be another one.
Yep.
There's always going to be one that's bigger.
Yep.
But
I just
how
want
do
to
you
go see
prior?
it, sister.
Yeah, well, how do you prioritize?
What's the big?
Do you go with the easiest first, or do you go with the one that is going to impact the business the most? So if you go easiest first, right, there's almost that sense of momentum, right? Oh gosh, I checked something off. Check, I got something accomplished. Now I can do something
Doesn't
else.
everybody put things on their list that they've already done to check them off?
No, but I'm going to start doing
You
that.
should do that. You should
Yes,
totally
already
do
did that.
that,
Check.
right?
Wow, look at
Just that
me.
feeling of accomplishment.
I've got
Yeah.
so much accomplishment.
So I wish this is the only time I wish I had a slide deck right here because there's 4 quadrants.
Okay.
Okay. So there's easy to
Yep.
complete, there's hard to complete, there's high value,
Yep.
and there's low value. I think I got them in the wrong
Yeah,
places.
maybe high up here, upper right. You want to be
Okay.
upper right, right?
So the I had an easy to complete high value. I picked it off first and it's
Mhm.
obscure. It's something that I don't do very often, but I don't do it very well. So it was easy to pick off because it's not a complicated process. I
Right.
documented in one of the GLs, especially for a bookkeeper, when you are going to send a file for year end off to an accountant that you don't know for taxes, the trial balance, the GL, the statement ending balances, and the reconciliation reports won't match. And it's niggly details to find out what the problem is.
Mm-hmm.
And so I didn't do it often enough to remember how to do them. And so sometimes I let them slide into a year end because I didn't do it. I didn't want to do it. Just like those
Right. Yeah,
unreconciled
it's like
transactions that your team members are leaving
it's
for you.
painful, right? Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, it's not that big a deal. Just write this thing down, make it a quarterly process, put it in the recurring work so that it shows up and you have to do it, but you have all the steps. So here's the reports you need to open. Here's the bank statements that you need. Here's the steps you go through. If all goes well, you're done. And then there's a phase 2 to it because it doesn't always go well. And then there's where you do. And
Right.
then there's finally call a friend. But it was high value
Right.
and it was easy to do. So that's how you decide.
Yep.
So, and then you need the underthinking part too. So onboarding may be a tough one to build, going to be huge value. So meet somewhere in the middle on that and just start it with the simple bite size, the milestones, I call them. Just do the milestones, not
Yep.
all the details. Just get the milestones down so you don't forget some important milestone,
Right.
right? So that you don't contract somebody before you actually get the incorporation documents to know that they're an incorporated company. Not that I ever did that.
Right. Not on
Turns out they were,
experience.
well, that turns out they were a family trust. So you only need the milestones, but go with that matrix. Pick off the easy stuff that's going to give you value, then pick off the easy stuff that may not give as much value,
Yep.
and then go for the big enchilada because now you've gotten into the habit of documenting these things. And it doesn't matter where you document them. Everybody is waiting to find the perfect app to document them in. We think in spreadsheets. You can't scale that unless, like, if you've got more than a half a dozen clients, you can't scale using spreadsheets to do client work. But you could certainly start there,
Right.
right? It's like the gateway. You got to start where you live. So when you're doing something, just pack it out and have a spreadsheet open. We've all got the second monitors now, I hope, or the third or fourth.
Right.
Just pack it out in another one while you're doing, and don't even worry about the spelling. Because Excel does not spell check. I use Google Sheets personally.
Yeah.
Google Sheets also does not spell
It
check.
doesn't either.
Not even Grammarly is going in there.
I don't even know that I've ever even thought about that.
Oh, I think about it.
I've never thought about that. Like whether it,
Spell checks?
yeah, I've never thought about that.
Okay.
Huh, there we go. Learn something. All right. So before we wrap up, let's do talk about, 'cause you talked about a lot of, obviously your cloud first, right?
Yeah.
What are kind of the key technologies in your stack? Like if you had, here's the 5 or 8, 10, whatever the number is of must-haves in a firm. We're going to stick with the firm side.
Okay.
And if it's not a particular tech, if it's not this app, this is the app, then an app that does X.
Yeah. Okay.
Follow what I'm saying?
Oh, 100%. Because
All
I
right,
love this stuff.
talk to me.
And you know what? A lot of it is the same for my clients because I try, if my clients are generally a little tech forward now, but
Okay,
the ones in the past were not. And I brought them into the same space to run their businesses.
kicking and screaming, right?
Some and some not. Some just didn't know how to get there. They wanted to. Those
I,
are those are my people. The ones that want to get there, but maybe don't know how. If they still want to talk about why they should do it, then I'm a pain in their arse on
right.
that one.
Yeah.
But so the main tech stack that you need, obviously a cloud accounting GL. So whether that is Xero, whether that is QuickBooks Online, and whether sometimes FreshBooks is a perfectly good fit if your market is the solos. So you got the three options. I am a QuickBooks Online gal,
Okay.
but they're great. Like
Mm-hmm.
the cloud accounting programs are great. Take them for what they are and know where they're going. So that I like the pay in Canada. We do payment processing has been not by check for a very long time. So payment processor is right up there. What do you have for document management at the front end? So that would be your Dext, your HubDoc. And so that would be your core accounting tech stack.
Mm-hmm.
It's getting the documents in, having them sent over to the GL, and making sure you can pay. And that is a seamless, in the moment process. My clients love that. The stuff is going in over here, and they're like, I need to pay the bill. And I'm like, okay, it's over there right now. It's in Pluto.
Yeah.
Go ahead, go and pay it. Right. And you can pull in your AR too. Your PADs should be magically coming into your world as well. So my clients pay by PAD, whether it's their fixed fee or whether there's some out of scope work, I'm still pulling on. And PADs are pre-authorized debits in
Okay.
Canada, ACH here, I think.
Okay.
And then you need the cloud-based tech stack to run your business. So an online scheduler, it's a must. And put some of it behind a paywall. So if you have out of scope meetings with your clients, so I had a client not too long ago. My clients are big enough engagements that they get, for the most part, the free part of my scheduler. But if their staff need help or their employees have come on and they need some help, they go behind the paywall because
Okay.
that's totally out of scope work. And
Yeah.
so let your online scheduler with a paywall manage some of your boundaries for sure. And then the other one, I mean, there's CRMs. I've already mentioned I have 17 hats. I use Financial Sense as my practice management app. That's how I get the work done. And so there's a lot of great ones. It is like an ice cream truck of practice management apps out there that are based in the cloud that are
Right.
working all kinds of management for us and our teams, right? And then my favorite is a form builder. Form builder you can do so much from, including vetting the client at the front end, gathering documentation, and then I do a re-engagement survey with my clients to see how they feel about
Mm,
the services that we provided.
okay.
And I have a section on where we fell down too, to make sure that I'm addressing all of that. And so the form builder is so fun. And 17 Hats has one built in that everything stays within the CRM.
Okay.
But if you want a super engaging one for the end user, for your clients, for your prospects, Typeform. There's all kinds of them. Cognito
Is
Forms
it
does
type form? Okay.
Typeform.
I've heard of that. I've never
Oh,
seen it.
I theoretically don't even need it because I've got a robust one built into my
Right.
CRM, but it's just so darn engaging for the end user and but Cognito Forms for accountants, encrypted fields if they're
Okay.
going to collect sensitive data, if they
Mhm.
are in the tax world. So form builders, I could go on all day about form builders. I actually just did a session last week at a conference just on building forms.
Okay.
Yeah,
And is that I've not used those. I should be. We use Zoho. Have you ever looked at the Zoho
sure.
platform like Zoho One?
Yeah,
It's
I'm not,
amazing
yeah, it's amazing.
what
I'm
all
not
it has.
engaged in it,
Yeah.
but it's certainly fantastic.
Amazing what it has.
Yeah.
The total offering of it. Now I don't know. Yeah, I think it's like 40 different apps. I don't know if they're all A or Fs. I have no idea. But and we use a very small portion of it. But all of these things you're talking about, it's all included
Yeah, it is.
in Zoho One.
Yeah,
And again,
same in my 17 hats.
yeah. Oh,
But
okay.
here's the thing. When you're looking at the apps, some of the apps have all of it built in and they do a fine job. But then something comes along that does a finer job.
Yep.
So 17 Hats also has an online schedule that will work for 75% of the people. I need the robustness of Acuity. So I'm paying for Acuity outside, even though it is built in, because I need that
Right.
extra. And I am paying for Typeform because of the extra things it does for me. So beware of the ones,
Yeah.
and they will do the job for 75% of the people. But don't be afraid to pay for an app because some of those apps, you will get that back in spades.
Right. Okay. Well, you know what? I think we're going to run out of time. So I really think that's going to be the last thing that we say, unless you have something else you want to
Do
end.
not open that
I
door.
was going
Do not
to.
open that door. Come on, you've talked to me before. You know not to do that.
Good point. So we're going to close it out there. Kelly, thank you so much for joining us. Thanks for sharing all your info. We do want to work on that webinar series that we talked
Yes.
about, and just so if you're listening, watching, however you're consuming this, is basically we're going to do a series of like we talked about, I think, in this
Yeah.
discussion on step by step. You know, let's implement. I can't. I've got my notes in here
Okay.
somewhere, but
I
it
know.
was
Can I say it?
yeah, hit it.
We're going to implement an online scheduler. We're not
Yep,
going to talk about an online scheduler. We are
gonna
going to
actually do it.
implement an online
Yeah,
scheduler. We are going to build some
password was one.
forms.
Password was one too.
We're going to do a password manager app.
Yep.
And again, we're doing it. We're not talking about it. We are going to do a form builder, how to build forms,
Yep.
and the key ones you should start with.
Can't
Hey,
remember
those
the
are,
other
I know
ones.
there's 6
There were
parts, right?
six, but
But
that's
those,
all
I'm
right.
excited
Well,
about those parts.
stay tuned. You'll
Okay.
learn more. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.